Today in series of Docplexus KL interviews, we have with us the famous ophthalmologist Dr. Professor S. Natarajan, who is the chairman and managing director of Aditya Jyot Eye Hospital in Mumbai. Apart from his achievements, his humanitarian work in serving the Kashmir's pellet victims should be highly appreciated and recognized. In 2013, for his key contributions in medicine, Dr. Natarajan was honored the prestigious Padmashri Award by the President of India. He's also the President-elect for AIOS 2018-19. Thank you, sir, for this interview. So let's begin with the first question. Can you please elaborate on the Kashmir incident where you and your team performed 69 surgeries in just 3 days?
Yeah, actually that was the first time when I went in July 2016 when the incident started in Kashmir after the Burhan Wani's elimination, and there was like a curfew and there was stone throwing, and unfortunately in the 4 months or 6 months there were about 10,000 people with pellet injuries, and pellets were used to protect the police because they were all being beaten up with their stones. So when I went first time in July, the whole city was like a ghost city, nobody in the roads because of the curfew, and then suddenly the streets will be with the people throwing stones, and then the police have to break the crowd by shooting them with the pellets. And the reason the reason they called me was one of the foundation called Borderless World Foundation. It's an Pune-based NGO who is working in Kashmir for the last 20 years, and they said there are so many injuries. And I have my best friend who is the Director General of Police, Mr. Shivanandan, who told me 2 days before this invitation that why you are going all over the world and teaching about retina surgery and operating, why not you do something in Kashmir? I said, how do I go on my own? And the next day when I was in a meeting in Patna, there was a message in the group asking for a experienced VR surgeon, vitreoretinal surgeon, to come and help them. And then second I answered that I will come. That was a Sunday, and I think on Tuesday was my flight to Srinagar. My hospital, my family, everybody was concerned. Sir, why are you going? You are a big person. I said, what is the use of my training and my experience when I can manage a difficult, complicated injuries like this, where the eye is torn into pieces through pellets, because the pellet is actually something like 400 pellets are there in one cartridge, and then when they fire, it goes as a shower. So it goes over the face depending on how close the person is and how close they come to hit the police with the stone, so they get injured, and then many of them go through and through to the eye. So I think there are 3 professors who are trained in retina, Dr. Tariq Qureshi, Dr. Sabina, and then Dr. one more Professor Pervez Ahmed. So all 3 of them are trained in retina, but I think they wanted moral and also support with an experienced surgeon like me. So even when I took my team, they were only doing assisting me because they wanted me to do all the complicated cases. So it was a challenge. One side press asking what is the use of operating these people, because most of the injuries are very bad, and then they may not get vision. So why are you operating? I said, no, I am trained in managing injuries in the eye, and I think I am passionate about repairing injured eyes from the year 82 when I was in the government eye hospital in Madras, and then later in Shankarnathila, Chennai, now called as Chennai, earlier Madras. So, and trained as a retina surgeon, I managed injuries from IPKF, that is the Indian Peacekeeping Force in Sri Lanka. Then also that time Operation Blue Star happened in Amritsar. So I already operated people involved in injuries like this, either due to war or due to these sort of. So plus I have been to all the war-struck places in the world, and I know my friends who are managing oculotomes. So I always wanted to do something to save their vision. First will be prevention. If you don't have a fight or stone throwing, the pellet would not be there. But having happened, I think I went there. First time I did something like 47 surgeries. Second visit I did another 50. So I think I myself personally have done, I think I have maximum 23 a day, sometimes 15 to 20, and I think I have done about 200 surgeries. Totally out of 1011 injuries, eye injuries, 951 the eye was torn, so they did a wound repair. So I should appreciate the SMH as a hospital in Kashmir, which did the wound repair. That means as soon as the injury happened, I think about hundreds get injured. They start repairing from the morning and they almost go to midnight. And my work was when the injury happened, within a week I go and do the second surgery, where the chances are better if you operate within a week rather than operating a month. So I also had patients who were injured and then they didn't come, or they came later. But any surgery, even though the worth of the surgery may be, you may get 1% vision or 5% vision, but my criteria was to do the repair as much as possible with the sincerity. And I think government of Kashmir also had all the good equipments required for vitreous surgery, like the best machine like Constellation, then good microscope from Zeiss. So I met the chief minister and said, one, we should do prevention. Second, why not you make a center of excellence for managing eye trauma and have sophisticated operation theatres and have an institute of ophthalmology, and I offered my services whether there is a problem like catastrophe like this, or even as a regular I would like to come and be a visiting surgeon and also a visiting professor to teach, because teaching is my passion. So I know all are not seeing, and I think many are seeing and some are seeing quite well. So I only pray to God for peace in Kashmir, and I want to say, as an Indian citizen, Kashmir to Kanyakumari is one, and we are part of it. And I am born near Kanyakumari. I am born in Madurai. I work in Dharavi and the city of Mumbai, and now I also work in Kashmir. So I wanted to say that India is like a one body, and where if you have injury in the leg, that means if you have an injury in Kashmir, or if you have an injury in the head, the eyes water because of crying. And I think when pain happens anywhere in India, I think I wanted to say that as a doctor, we want to go and do humanitarian service. And I think, and there was a risk for life, but I think I didn't have protection, I didn't have police, and I think God is there. And I think when you are truthful and honest, I think we also come from the land of Rabindranath Tagore. He says, fear not. Swami Vivekananda says, fear is death, and confidence you should be the fourth you should have, that is the strength. And I think following these our people, I think everybody can, India, Kashmir to Kanyakumari should be one, and I sincerely pray peace prevails, so that we do other jobs of where as an eye doctor we have to manage diabetic retinopathy or blood pressure related eye problem, rather than managing injury which can be prevented totally. But having said that, I am also the president of Ocular Trauma Society of India and Asia Pacific Ophthalmic Trauma Society. So everywhere we talk about how to manage injuries, but I also want to urge, now the Holi is coming, and I think everybody wants to play, and I've seen even doctor community we play, and suddenly we get excited, we want to throw the color on your friend's eyes, and or the face rather. Nobody wants to throw in the eye, but it goes into the eye, and if you scratch you can have problem. They put the balloon, and sometimes from the high rise it hits your eye can be torn, or that pichkari. So I urge everybody play Holi, but play Holi safe. Same thing with crackers, play everything, but why not we do without the sound and without the pollution, and do electronically. We are saying go green, why not we play the crackers go green, and colors, use the environmentally friendly colors, and make sure when you want to color the body rather than coloring the face. Maybe you can color the hair, in the sense put the powder which will get washed in the water. So as soon as people throw water, the color should go away. And please protect yourself, the skin and the eyes too.
So moving on to our next question. Irrespective of age, diabetic retinopathy is the most frequent cause of blindness in adults between the age of 20 and 74. What is the root cause of its occurrence in younger population?
One is myopia. Myopia is not a disease, where what we call myopia is normal diopters, where you don't need a glass. When you wear minus number glass, it's called myopia, where the eyeball is elongated. So, when myopic people are more prone for a retinal detachment compared to a normal. That means 1 out of 10,000 every year there can be a retinal detachment. That means, so everybody with myopia need not worry, but the only thing is every myop should get rather my suggestion is everybody should get an eye examination done, and if they have myopia you should look for the retinal examination in the periphery where they may have weak point, and if they have a family history we can do a preventive laser and have a periodic checkup to prevent retinal detachment. And the other is inherited retinal disorders like Stargardt's disease, macular degeneration, which happens from the because of the genes. It actually is there from the birth, but it gets manifested at the age of 20 or 30. There is another disease called night blindness. It happens because of the consanguineous marriage, where the close relatives marry each other. So, the retinitis pigmentosa is called the night blindness, which happens in all ways of genetics like autosomal recessive, autosomal dominant, and also sporadic. So, a lot of genetic engineering happening, but these people actually can go blind slowly from the age of 20, and then the side vision gets constricted, and now recently FDA has approved the most expensive medical treatment in the world, that is the genetic engineering for a patient with RPE 165 gene alteration in retinitis pigmentosa. It costs about 5 crores, where it's about $4,50,000 for that subretinal injection of the gene, where we can inject the gene behind the retina in the submacular space, and those patients, blind patients, can see. And other can be blood pressure related, where they can develop the circulation block called the retinal vein occlusion. It can be branch or the central, which they can produce macular edema and then produce blindness. The other is when 40 onwards and 50 years onwards, you have a condition called age related macular degeneration, which affects the, like how we get white hair or a skin wrinkle. They get first the lipid deposition called the drusen, and then later they develop from dry macular degeneration to wet macular degeneration, where wet is new blood vessel behind the retina develops, and in case you don't diagnose, they can bleed and have a small, even a drop of blood behind the retina can produce blindness. So, it produces central blindness. That means a person cannot look at the face, but he can see in the side, but it's not practical because you cannot drive, you cannot write. So, it always becomes a legal blindness. For all this, we can use a simple chart called Amsler chart, which is made of squares, where a person is asked to look at with a reading glass and focus with one eye, and if all the line looks straight, you are all right, and if you have any distortion, you should go to a retina specialist and get the eye examined, and if you need to do a retina angiography, retina OCT. So, I think apart from diabetes, you have several things which can affect the eye, and I always tell the eye is so small with only like 24 millimeter axial length, and then you have so many things, and every part of the eye is different, right from development to pathology. So, I think eye is a unique structure where the eye has to be always remain transparent, where the light has to go through the cornea, lens, and then the vitreous, and the person sees.
Any suggestions how to prevent the progression of retinal diseases like diabetic retinopathy?
And it's a very good question. The Lancet is a journal which published last year that the world is going to have 700 million diabetics. So, I think every health department in the various countries should look into this, because it's going to be a public health problem. WHO has mentioned that, where if you screen all diabetics early, you are making the patient aware of diabetic complications like retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy, and also stroke and heart problems. But India has been projected to have 60 million diabetics, and that is why, as now the incoming president of All India Ophthalmic Society, and on behalf of Government of India, as a part of DBT, I am in the task force in the department called human genetic, as an expert member in human genetics and genome analysis, where we want to create an eye research consortium. So, my dream is to bring in all the NGOs, including the IMA and all medical fraternity, the Diabetic Association, or All India Ophthalmology Association, and make sure that we diagnose every diabetic in the country, as well as screen them for retinopathy. So as soon as they are diagnosed with diabetes, and if you take a retinal picture and send it to a reading center like what we are developing in Mumbai, plus we have, if all the images are collected, and I think we are making the patient aware, and without doctors the eye can be examined, in the sense screened by taking a photograph using a mobile adapter, where you can take the retinal photographs like using the smartphone, and it can be sent by internet to the reading center. One day the automation software, which the artificial intelligence they are trying, the Google, the Microsoft and various other groups are trying that, where with the images they do the computer deep mining as well as the machine learning, and then that helps in diagnosing without the doctor. And it's important because if 60 million people have to be screened, we don't have that many eye doctors and paramedicals like the optometrists. We only have 20 to 25,000 eye doctors practicing in India, and according to me they should do the treatment part of it rather than screening. It's not that screening is not important. Screening is the most important because you may diagnose something else also if you take a photograph of the retina. So I also run an NGO and I am a managing trustee called Aditya Jyot Foundation for Twinkling Little Eyes. We do 40 eye camps all over, screening camps all over Mumbai, and we have a van supported by World Diabetic Foundation from Denmark, where they have helped us in installing a Zeiss camera, retina camera, Zeiss angiography unit and laser, where the van goes to all slums and we do it free. One is screening, we do the diabetic testing, and if they are diabetic we do the retinal screening, and if they have any treatment required we do the laser in the van itself, and if they need an injection or a surgery then they come to the center, and if they cannot afford we do it free. If they can afford we also do in charity, in addition to the private practice, which has the it is like going to a 5-star and then to a 1-star restaurant where everything is available, and I think the same quality, but given in a subsidized to the person who cannot afford, and given free to the patient who is not affording anything. So if everybody is aware, and I think India will have a great opportunity of having every diabetic screen, and if they control it they will not go blind. And diabetic retinopathy is the highest cause of blindness even in the Western world. So if they don't go blind, they will working their time will increase and it will be more productive, so there will be economic gain for the country. But if a man working, for example, one family man head who is working and he goes blind, you can imagine one is a loss for the family and even for the city and the nation. And if you can prevent them and give healthy eyes, I think we will achieve a greater economy. And I hope the government of India, the state governments, because health is a state subject, and office bearers like us who are in the All India Ophthalmic Society, IMA, all of us have to take this as a forefront to screen, because I think screening is a secret to prevent people going blind with diabetic retinopathy. Once you screen, I think you can sensitize everybody, and whoever requires treatment only has to go to the doctor, and 90% of them who may not need anything except a checkup every 6 months, being a diabetic, they can go to the center like a kiosk, have the retina photograph, and then they go back to work, and the machine learning wise one day the machine itself will tell, okay, your eyes are normal, you go back, come back after 6 months. So if they have a problem, then they go to the eye doctor. So I think that will be the answer for managing diabetic retinopathy. And the Lancet is given one more scary statement, that in case if the health authorities in the world do not take this into cognizance, and I think there is a risk where every alternate fellow in the whole world will be a diabetic, and how are you going to manage it? And I think it will include the doctors, it will include the all professionals or literate and illiterate, and you can see the burden what will happen in the years to come. So I think we have to be awakened, and everybody should do the screening so that we can prevent something like epidemic due to cataract can have, like a cataract, diabetic retinopathy can happen.
Eye donation helps in what kind of patients?
Eye donation, actually there is a myth also, because they have a wrong concept that when you remove the eye from the dead person, you can transplant the whole eye. No, eye is like a watch where the front part, the glass part, it's transparent. That's why you are able to see the time. So when that becomes opaque because of injury or because of the corneal diseases or dystrophy or degeneration, When that becomes opaque, provided the back of the eye works, then the corneal transplant can be done. So, when a human being dies, only after the death certificate the eye donation can be done. So, this should be very told to everybody, because we cannot remove the eye from a person without death certificate. There are instances where somebody has been declared dead by the family, and then suddenly the patient is maybe it's 1 in a million, but that can happen. So, you imagine if somebody is not really died and then you remove the eye, it's I mean, how do you answer that? So, I think the best, that's why the laws are made to protect all this. So, first is this is what I tell, because the eye donation, we need about 3 lakh corneas in India and we are only getting 30,000. So, the problem is everybody knows eye donation is important, but at the time of death I always tell they forget, one because of the grief and the other because they have to do arrangements. So, I think it has to become a habit where they call the family doctor for getting a death certificate, and once you get a death certificate you book the crematorium and then you inform all relatives and also take care of the legal part of the will, and the 5th part should be to call the eye bank, and then the eye bank can decide where they can take the eye, and then if the eye is useful they can give it for another transplantation, otherwise give it for research or for training for the eye doctors. And I think when my mother and father died, my father is eye doctor, when my mother died, because of my own sorrowful state that time, I forgot about eye donation, and I was in Cochin and I had to fly, and half an hour later my dad called and said, what do you think, should we give the eyes? I said, definitely, please go ahead, call our own eye bank and do that. And I think that's what is required, even though I am dedicated and I wanted to do, but at that moment of grief, if somebody didn't remind me, and even though my father lost his wife as my mother, but he remembered half an hour later, he called me, I called the eye bank and gave. So, somebody should be there. So, in Tamil Nadu and some places where we give the that when we pledge, because according to me pledging is only for your own conscience, others unless they know they cannot call the eye bank. So, for example, somebody pledges and they are going to live for 100 years, and when they are going to die, somebody around them should take that card and see that he has pledged the eyes and call the eye bank, because if they do not call, then even after pledging you will not be able to get the eyes. So, eye donation helps in transplanting the cornea for a corneal blind, either injury or the like ulcer, or even if there is a acid burn or an alkali burn, something falls in the eye and you lose the eye and the back of the eye works. Eye is also like a camera where you have the front the lens and then the empty space and then the film. So, here only the front the cornea part can be changed, rest of the thing has to work. If they have a retinal disease, then the corneal transplantation will not benefit, so it cannot be done.
So, lastly, as a president of AIOC, what are your plans for the coming year?
Oh, and I think I am actually originally from Tamil Nadu, but settled in Mumbai. Now, as a president-elect, I have taken a theme which I have got it passed in the governing council and in managing committee, that we should have a theme for the next year. The conference is going to be in Indore in February 2019. So, they have decided the overall as a science and spirituality. In addition, I have suggested to them the first eye hospital in the world is started in 1805 in Moorfields Hospital, London, and then the second eye hospital is a Madras Eye Infirmary, now they call the Government Ophthalmic Hospital in Egmore, Chennai. That time it was Madras. It was started in 1819, and that's the first eye hospital in India and Asia and Australia, and maybe even compared to America, because the hospital started in 1819 is still working, and that means it survived all the catastrophes in the past 200 years, and it's a great moment of pride for every Indian and Indian ophthalmologist that we are living in an era where we have we can celebrate this 200 years, where that institute has given rise to the various stalwarts like Dr. R.P. Danda, Dr. Venkateswamy, Dr. Badrinath, and I have my personal attachment to that place, because from the time of birth I lived in the quarters, because my father was the assistant professor there from 1957 to 1969. My grandfather also studied there and worked there. My father studied there and worked there and retired as the director of the institute in 1987. And I was also a student, undergraduate and postgraduate. So, and we are all proud that that institute is celebrating 200 years. I want the whole country to celebrate it. So I made a slogan like think eyes, think AOS, look eyes, look AOS, and then whether it is wherever you go, east or west, in 2019 everybody should come to Indore to celebrate that. And as an eye doctor, we also wanted to say that as a part of the 200 years celebration, we want to remind every citizen of India, right to sight, he has to see well, but for that he has to come to the eye doctor. Right from the birth to the death, he should have the eyes examined, and even after the death they should contact the eye doctor for donating the eyes for the eye bank. So in this context, I am also inviting the American Academy of Ophthalmology, World Ophthalmology Congress, then all the international ophthalmic societies or national ophthalmic societies, about 144 countries affiliated to International Ophthalmology Council as a guest to come to the installation of me as the president and come to the 2090 conference where in Indore. It's like our India has a tradition in Republic Day and Independence Day. Every year we have a guest of honor from another country, a prime minister or a president comes, and this year we had prime minister and presidents of 10 Asian countries, ASEAN countries, where from Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, Nepal, they were there. So like that, I think we also want every country to come and celebrate 200 years of the, because I think if it is the second eye hospital in the world, only first is Moorfield, and no other part of the world had ophthalmic eye hospital that time. There were ophthalmology departments, there were ophthalmology, and I am also happy to say as an Indian that our first cataract surgery in the world was done by Srushusha in 500 BC. So that means we are in the forefront that time, and in 17th century we had King Sarojji, who is a cousin of Shivaji, the warrior in Maharashtra, who ruled Tanjore, and he was an excellent eye surgeon, and it has been reported in India as well as in Europe in the 17th century, and later 1819 the Madras Eye Infirmary was started, and it's still working, and they got the biggest museum of ophthalmology there called the Elliott School of Ophthalmology. Elliott is actually designed an instrument called trephine for glaucoma surgery, and in his name it is there, and they have a record of all the Britishers who were started the eye hospital in 1819. So I want the whole world to come see the museum in Elliott School of Museum in Madras, and also every state ophthalmic society affiliated to All India Ophthalmic Society should celebrate it. So I have requested Tamil Nadu Ophthalmic Association and Madras City Ophthalmic Association to start the celebrations first in Madras. The reason is they are the main reason for celebrating 200 years, and I think everybody should enjoy, because if you have good eyes, if you have good vision, you enjoy the world, and that's what eye doctors' duty are. So it's like reminding each other, as a professional we are ready to take care, and as a citizen of India, you please take the services. Who cannot afford, we will do free. Who can afford, we have subsidized for the people who are in the lower income group, and who can pay well, and it's like you go to the private institutions. And with this, and I also want all medical societies to come, and as a part of 200 years, we want to make sure that every citizen lives healthily, so that our longevity increases, and if they live long, protect yourself from diabetic retinopathy, age-related macular degeneration, so that you have healthy eyes, healthy vision, and celebrate vision, celebrate life, and thank Docplexus to help me and the society to make this progress as a grand success, so that it reaches the hook and corner of the world and not only India.
Thank you so much for the interview. It was a pleasure having you here.